I'm not sure that the galleries that I'm going to go and visit today will want to receive my artwork. It's a bit of a risk. It's almost like knocking on doors looking for work. But I thought there's emails that I need to send today, and I will do that at some point. For now, I'd like people to see my artwork in person to hopefully introduce myself in a way which will give me an opportunity to have a place in galleries that I otherwise wouldn't have. So that's what I'm going to go and try. Despite my best efforts, I failed to capture when I popped into another gallery in Bangor called Pontio. So that is gallery number 4. Now, not every gallery that I went to did I show my work. So Finner Park, I didn't show them my work. I just had a nice chat with them. And when I went into Storiel and Pontio, I didn't show them my work, but I had a chat with the people there. And that's sometimes just a good way to get started. And then I started driving back towards where I came from because I was popping into Abergele on the way back home. And there was a gallery there that I've heard about, and an artist had told me, she said that, it's probably a good place to put some of my work. And it wasn't what I was expecting. It was quite a nice surprise, and I had a lovely chat with a fellow there who knew people who I'm friends with, and he's been long-time friends with them, much longer than I've known these people, who are also artists in North Wales. So that was a really nice connection. And so this is gallery number 5. So here it is. Now, the Peculiar Gallery is exactly that. It is a peculiar place. It's antiques, it's bits and bobs, it's artwork, it's sculptures, it's bits of everything, really. It's lovely, really nice, bit of an overdose of little and large bits and pieces. Really nice though, really nice vibe in the place, and I enjoyed having a nosy around. It's one of those places where you can just get lost in every single detail just jumping out at you, because it's a lovely collection of pieces from lots of different artists and just purchases that are there for sale. So some interesting things. I tried to take a few photographs just to give you a sense of some of the things high and low in the place, because if you look up you can see things, if you look down you can see things, and you look left to right, it's all filled with just treats for the eye everywhere. And there's an exhibition that is launching there on Friday at 6 p.m, but sadly I won't be able to attend because that is exactly when the launch of the Plankton exhibition is happening, of which I am a part. So that was that. Now, before I got on with my drawing, I was still looking after this little girl here. I've been looking after this cat for the past few days, and it's always a joy. But then I came back, started my drawing after changing my clothes because, as you know, I'm quite allergic to cats, and I still have had a bit of an effect even though I did take antihistamines. So that's why I've got a bit of a change of clothing from the start of this video. You may not have noticed. Anyway, that happened. Now, I thought I would start off this video of the drawing in real time so that you can see me doing the outline. There's no photo reference, there's no real forethought. I think I briefly had the idea of doing a side profile, and that was it. Didn't know if it would be a man or a woman. I didn't know if there'd be photo reference or not, and I decided to go without photo reference because it is the most comfortable thing for me, is to just draw from imagination. I can do that fairly quickly and comfortably, and if it goes wrong I can just play with it until it looks interesting, you know. So even if things do get away from me in the drawing, you can always create some character traits to it. Now, it turns out this character, as much as it's from imagination and not planned and no reference, looks like someone who's a bit angry and from Crime Watch, and that wasn't anything which I thought would happen. So it can surprise me sometimes where these things come from, because I'd had quite a nice happy day, so it wasn't reflecting my experience of the day. Very busy, very tiring, but very fulfilling to go out and see so many lovely galleries and really nice work being exhibited all over North Wales. So I think that's, again, helps with the creative process to come back and create work yourself. Even if my work is nothing like anything that I've seen today, it's still just creativity bubbling up inside of you. Anyway, so this is how I started the drawing, and I didn't know what direction I'd take it in either. I know that I always preface a lot of these things with I don't know this and I didn't know that, but I'm honestly just trying to give you a sense of where my mind is when I'm doing drawings like this, because you may not know. You may assume that I'm planning these things out or have any kind of I don't know, just ideas beforehand, and there usually isn't. My head being blank doesn't really affect the drawing negatively in my experience. You know, I think that the head looks fairly decent. I didn't do especially interesting clothing. I could have done anything really decorative and creative and strange, but I went for something quite ordinary and easy. but that's possibly to do with fatigue. It's me giving myself a bit of an excuse there, but I was tired. It had been a long drive, and I could have just left the neck cut off like that, really. But I thought, after doing the hairline, I thought it'd be nice to have a bit of background for who the character is based on their clothing. So I start to add something, like I said, very basic, but still, pieces of clothing always add context to who the person may or may not be. And normally, 9 times out of 10, I will do a collared shirt and not much else. I don't usually do jewelry or tattoos or too many, what do you call them? Kind of the additional bits of clothing, the accessories. I don't usually accessorize for the character, which I need to start doing, because that is really interesting and specific things and bits which add a lot to the character. But on this occasion I didn't. It's a daily drawing, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm trying to just do something half decent and a little bit different from what I've done for the last few days, with yesterday being my least favourite so far, and with a bit of luck it'll be the worst one of the month, because I think I should be able to do something better than that, than yesterday's. For the 4th of October, I should be able to do something better than that entry for every other day without much difficulty, because it was a strange failure yesterday, which I'm glad I do, because you have to have these failures and find out where things fall short. That's how you can avoid them in the future and try to make things work in a way where the failures didn't. And just like with this shirt, there have been times where I haven't put creases in and I haven't considered the weight of the fabric, and it doesn't look quite right. Now, this could have been left as a line drawing and me say, that's it, that's the drawing done. But I obviously decided to continue, and I'm glad that I did. But I thought that I would continue with a much smaller nib. So what I do is I go in with a 0.05 fine liner nib to get in some very fine hatching. I used to use this all the time when I was starting out drawing, and I don't use it as often these days, but I knew that it would be a nice, enjoyable tool for this job, because as you can see, it just looks like a light grey. You can't really see the lines very well, and that gives me the opportunity to just build and build and build, because I wanted to create mid-tone, and from that shadow, and just have the room to make mistakes and then cover them up, which is what this size nib affords you the opportunity to do. And you can see there, if you go back over the lines, they slowly darken, and that's all I was doing. It's a really fun nib. I recommend it. 0.05. I do have a 0.03, but it doesn't add that much more of a difference or reduce the nib that much of a noticeable difference for me. Even though I've tried them both together, 0.05 is incredibly small, as you can tell. So that's what I'm using, and just pushing around the tone, just adding to it and adding to it. And if I go too far with something, then I can just darken everything else. So underneath the lip there, I went a little bit too dark, so I darken everything else so that it lessens how dark it looks under the lip, and then go darker, and everything just adjusts as everything else goes dark. I don't know what else to say about it, really. I suppose it's just a case of feeling your way around what you do and don't like. One thing that I did do with this drawing that I quite enjoyed was doing different directional hatching, which I've only started doing recently, which means that instead of going diagonal and then having a gap and then diagonal again, trying to close the gap as much as possible, instead I changed the angle slightly, and I quite like that. I think it looks quite nice. I think it's better than the hatching that I've done before. I've noticed that other artists do that sort of thing, so I didn't look at their work before trying it, but I just remembered that when I saw other artists' work, doing different directional hatching didn't hurt. If anything, it just made it look like an interesting patchwork of texture. So I thought I'd try it, and to me that makes it quite interesting and nice. So it's something I'm going to adopt from now on. And not only on the hair, but I did it on the clothing as well. Now I didn't do it on the skin because that's a bit of a different concept behind how I was shading the skin, whereas for the clothing and the hair I wanted it to look like a sort of textured, not pattern, but a textured surface, let's put it that way. Now the skin's obviously textured, but it's quite different, so I wanted the skin to look as though it had planes to it, as in sides that were catching shadow or light. This being the 5th submission for the Inktober challenge, I put a 5 on the shoulder, and I'm going to keep that for every submission. I'm going to make sure that I include the number. I almost forgot on number 3, and then I added it last minute afterwards. I filmed it with my phone, which was terrible quality, whereas this is at least with my camera, which is better quality. But there is a section here where I film myself from lower down on the desk, and I press some kind of setting. There's just buttons in places which I touch, and the quality goes terrible. So sadly, I like the angle where I'm filming from, but you can just see this weird static on the screen. Can you see that? That's because I'd pressed something and it affects the clarity of the image. I don't know why that happens, but there we are. That is something which sadly I had pressed and I was completely unaware of. So that's unfortunate, especially since I developed the image quite a bit from this angle. I start to deepen the tonality and the shading of the clothing and try to push it past where it was before. So you can see everything's darkened quite a bit. I mean, I've cut the footage down a bit there because I just can't stand seeing the fuzzy static image, which is a bit of a shame. I'll be careful of that in the future. Darken parts of the 5, and then use my 0.05 again to create some tone, and there it is. That's it done.